Imagine, just for a second, that the entire weight of saving your civilization falls squarely on your shoulders.
Right, which is a terrifying thought.
Oh, absolutely terrifying. You need to preserve the history, the identity, the very soul of your people, but you are facing an impossible problem.
Because you have no tools.
Exactly. You don't have paper, you don't have pens, and a heavily armed group of invaders has just deliberately burned your most sacred monument to the ground. Your language is literally dying in the dark.
It's a total erasure.
Yeah. So how do you do it? How do you save who you are when the physical evidence of your existence is, being turned to ash?
That is the core question.
It is. And welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are immersing ourselves in an extraordinary kind of genre-bending manifesto novel. It's titled The Duende of the Real Maravilloso, and it's by Max and Claude, Gemini, and Grok.
And this isn't just a standard historical fiction, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have a really fascinating mission for you today.
We do. We are going to explore how memory, human survival, and resistance can be encoded entirely without written words. Instead, we're looking at history encoded in rhythm and in wood.
Which completely flips our normal understanding of history on its head.
Literally. We're going to track how this specific rhythm survives across 3 centuries and 3 continents. Like, we go from a burning sacred tree in 1758 Senegal, across the ocean, to the thundering drums of the 1791 Haitian Revolution, and finally,
That's my favorite part.
to a bullet-catching flamenco guitar during the Spanish Civil War.
It's a journey that really requires you to rethink how history is recorded. I mean, if you could see my visual backdrop for this deep dive right now, you would see these massive, ancient twisting tree roots slowly wrapping around and merging into a solid wall of classic flamenco guitars and deep, resonant African drums.
That sounds incredible.
It really sets the thematic stage for this entire text, because fundamentally, this novel is a direct challenge to Western rationalism. It asks us to examine alternative epistemologies.
And just for anyone who might not know, epistemology is just the philosophical term for, how we know what we know, right?
Exactly. It's the study of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So the text asks this really profound question. How do marginalized people maintain their knowledge of the world when history becomes so excessively violent, so extreme, that normal, everyday logic completely falls apart?
Well, let's jump right into the narrative to see what that extreme violence actually looks like, because the book starts with a truly devastating historical scene.
It's brutal.
Yeah. It is 1758 in Nindekar, Senegal. Slavers, who are led by this Portuguese captain named Guilherme Fonseca, they raid a local village.
And it's important to note how methodical they are.
Right. The text emphasizes that they don't just capture human beings. They systematically target the culture itself. They deliberately set fire to a 200-foot-tall sacred fromager tree, which is also known as a kapok tree.
Right, so this isn't just a plan to the people there.
Not at all. It's the physical and spiritual center of their entire community. And Fonseca actually writes in his ship's logbook that burning this specific tree is a necessary tactic for psychological subjugation.
He knows exactly what he's doing.
He does. He knows that to break a people, you have to erase their sacred landmarks. But here is the critical detail that sets this whole story in motion. Deep in the ashes, 3 pieces of the tree's dense heartwood actually survive the fire.
What's fascinating here is the author framing. The tree doesn't die the way a human body dies. It transforms.
No, I like that.
Yeah, the narrative then locks onto one of those surviving pieces of wood and the people desperately connected to it as they are forced onto a slave ship called the Nossa Senhora da Piedade.
Which translates to Our Lady of Pity, ironically enough.
A very grim irony. And this is where the abstract concept of cultural erasure becomes horrifyingly concrete for the reader.
Horrifying is honestly almost an understatement. The conditions described in the hold of this ship are just beyond nightmare fuel. We need to pause and actually picture this for a second.
It's important to visualize it, yeah.
We are talking about 243 human beings chained to these rough-hewn wooden shelves. The text notes they are given barely 18 inches of vertical space.
18 inches. You can't even sit up.
You can't sit up, you can barely breathe. And because of the unsanitary conditions and the sheer terror of it all, the mortality rate is just accelerating geometrically.
It's a very fast, very brutal decline.
People are dying so fast that the remaining captives are literally surrounded by corpses. But then, right in the middle of this horror, the narrative zeroes in on a man named Birane.
Birane is such a crucial character. He's a griot, right?
Yes, a griot, which is a traditional West African historian, a storyteller, and a musician. And the authors describe his hands. They are heavily scarred from 40 years of playing a 21-string kora.
A traditional stringed instrument.
Exactly. So in the pitch black of this ship's hold, captives from all these different regions are crammed together. Various African languages are colliding, and because people are dying so rapidly, those languages are literally going extinct in the dark.
Spoken language is completely collapsing as a viable tool for communication.
Right. So faced with that total collapse, what does Birane do? He starts tapping his fingers. He taps a highly specific rhythm on the European oak shelf that he is chained to.
He's using the environment itself.
Yeah. He taps the exact continuation pattern he was playing on his kora the night before the raid happened.
And that tapping introduces one of the central philosophical pillars of the book, which is the concept of negritude.
Okay, lay that out for us.
Well, for those who might not be familiar, negritude was a literary and ideological movement. It was developed in the 1930s by Francophone intellectuals, most notably the Senegalese poet and philosopher Léopold Sédar Senghor.
Oh, right, Senghor.
Yeah, it was a direct rejection of French colonial racism and this forced assimilation of African cultures. Senghor argued for a very distinct African identity and consciousness.
So how does the novel use that?
In the context of this novel, the authors apply Senghor's ideas to show that rhythm is not merely decorative. It's not just music or entertainment. Rhythm is epistemology.
Meaning it's a way of knowing things.
Exactly. It is a highly sophisticated method of holding collective knowledge. When the written word is unavailable and spoken languages are being violently stripped away from you in the hold of a ship, rhythm becomes this unbreakable map of memories.
That makes a lot of sense.
The text describes Birane's tapping as holding the cadence of a mother's walk, or, the specific sound of the wind moving through the leaves of that burned fromager tree.
Okay, let's unpack this because I have to ask. On a practical level, this sounds beautiful, but I'm like tripping up on the physiology of it.
How so?
Well, how does tapping on a piece of oak actually keep diseased, starving people alive in a ship's hold? Because the authors make a point of noting that the geometric death curve actually flattens out when the other captives start humming along to Birane's rhythm.
Right, it has a physical effect.
Yeah, my mind immediately goes to something like a biological pacemaker.
Oh, that's an interesting way to put it.
Like, by humming, these captives are physically syncing up their heart rates and their breathing to the singular rhythm. And maybe that prevents the mass panic and hyperventilation that was literally killing them.
I really like the pacemaker analogy for the physical side of it, but I think the text takes that idea a step further into the psychological realm.
How do you mean?
It's not just keeping the heart beating, right? It's keeping the identity intact. A pacemaker keeps a biological organism alive, sure, but this rhythm keeps them human. It is an autonomic, collective survival technology.
Wow. Collective survival technology.
Yeah, because they are not just humming a comforting tune to pass the time. The rhythm becomes a secure container for their humanity. There's this incredibly moving scene where a woman named Aminata is dying in the hold.
Oh, I remember this part. It's heartbreaking.
She knows she won't survive the crossing. But before she dies, she sends her entire genealogy aloud, 20 generations of her family tree.
Just putting it out into the dark.
Yes. And Birane listens, and he literally translates the specific linguistic cadence of those names into the rhythm he is tapping on the wood. He encodes her entire historical existence into the pulse.
That is amazing.
And meanwhile, the Portuguese slavers walking on the deck above, they think they are just hearing animalistic noises. But below deck, the captives are essentially building an invisible cathedral of memory.
An invisible cathedral, that visual is just staggering. And what's amazing is that the physical wood, that surviving piece of the sacred fromager tree, actually makes it across the Atlantic.
It survives the journey.
It does. But even more importantly, the cultural seed of that rhythm survives the crossing, and it takes root in the incredibly brutal soil of the Caribbean.
Which brings us to the next major era.
Right. 1791, we are in Saint-Domingue, the French colony that we now know as Haiti. We're placed on the Habitation Bellevue sugar plantation, and we really need to understand the scale of the horror here to grasp what happens next.
The plantation system was a death camp, essentially.
Totally. The industrial pace of the sugar plantation is so severe, the heat and the labor so punishing, that the life expectancy for an enslaved person upon arriving is just 7 years.
7 years. It's just a machine designed to consume human life.
Exactly. And here we meet Ézéchiel, who is a furnace worker. His job is basically a death sentence. And we also meet Maurice, a drummer.
And she's deeply connected to that rhythm.
Yes. Maurice learned Birane's exact continuation patterns, which have been passed down through the generations, and that surviving piece of heartwood. A craftsman has actually carved it into the man-man, the central mother drum used in their ceremonies.
And this specific drum and this specific rhythm set the stage for what is arguably one of the most pivotal, world-changing moments in human history.
The Bois Caïman ceremony.
Exactly. On the night of August 14th, 1791, this is the gathering that officially sparks the Haitian Revolution.
And the narrative puts us right in the middle of that clearing in the woods. 300 enslaved people gather in secret. The leaders, Duddy Bookman and a mambo named Cecile, they lead a blood covenant.
A deeply sacred ritual.
Right. They sacrifice a pig and drink its blood from a bowl. And get this, the bowl was also carved from that exact same sacred kapok wood.
The connections just keep layering.
They really do. Then the drumming starts. Maris is playing the continuation pattern on the man-man drum. The text describes how the spiritual forces of the voodoo religion, like Urzuli and Agu, they descend and literally mount or possess the dancers.
The rhythm opens the door for that spiritual intervention.
Yeah. The people in the clearing completely cease to be isolated, exhausted laborers. They become a single, unified, collective organism.
And that energy directly leads to the uprising just 6 days later.
It does. Ézéchiel's out setting the massive cane fields on fire. The French overseer, this guy named Claverie, rides up. Claverie points a perfectly functional, loaded, well-maintained pistol directly at Ézéchiel's chest and pulls the trigger.
And nothing happens.
Nothing happens. The gun misfires. Claverie panics, cocks it, and tries again. It misfires a second time. And in that moment of failure, Ézéchiel strikes the overseer down with his machete.
That misfire is the hinge of the entire novel.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. Because it perfectly illustrates the concept of l'Oreal Maravilloso, or the marvelous reel, which was coined by the Cuban novelist Alejo Carpentier.
Okay, I've heard of magical realism, but is this the same thing?
No. And it is crucial that we separate this from magical realism. Magical realism is largely a literary device. It's essentially European surrealism overlaid onto Latin American settings.
Like floating people and stuff like that?
Right. But the marvelous reel is entirely different. It is a profound claim about the nature of history itself. Carpentier argued that Caribbean history, which was forged in the absolute extreme violence of the transatlantic slave trade and the industrial plantation system, is so excessive that it literally breaks the boundaries of Western rationalism.
Okay, hold on, wait. I'm tripping up on the physics of the book's universe here.
What's the holdup?
Well, is the novel suggesting that the gun jammed because of literal supernatural intervention from the Loa, like a magic spell? Or is this misfire just a dramatic metaphor for the overseer losing his nerve, sweating, and fumbling his weapon because his whole psychological worldview is collapsing?
The brilliance of the marvelous reel is that it refuses to let you separate the two. It completely rejects the premise of your question.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In this worldview, the gun misfiring isn't a magic trick, but it's also not just a sweaty hand. It is the physical manifestation of a new physics forged by 300 years of concentrated human suffering.
A new physics.
Think about it this way. The European Enlightenment produced the rational mathematics required to design and build that pistol, but it also produced the cold, rational mathematics used to calculate exactly how many human bodies could be crammed into 18 inches of space on a slave ship.
Oh, wow. That's a heavy connection.
So at the crossroads of the Bois Caïman Revolution, that oppressive rationalist physics is completely superseded by a different physics entirely.
Okay, so it's less like a magical force field and maybe more like a concept of resonant frequency.
Resonant frequency, I like that. Expand on that.
Well, you know how an opera singer can hit a very specific sustained pitch and a glass across the room will just shatter?
Right.
The glass doesn't break because of magic. It breaks because the frequency of the sound waves literally overpowers the physical molecular structure of the glass.
That's a great way to look at it.
So the book is suggesting that the collective rhythm of the revolution, which is fueled by generations of suffering, reached a frequency that literally shattered the rationalist structure of the plantation's reality. The physics that made the gun work simply couldn't operate in that specific frequency.
That is a phenomenal way to understand it. The oppressive reality simply shatters. And that rhythm fueled a revolution that, against all military odds, created the first free Black Republic.
Which is incredible.
It is. But the journey of the wood and the rhythm it carries doesn't end in the Caribbean.
No, it doesn't.
Decades later, a cracked piece of that man-man drum actually makes its way across the ocean back to Europe, and it lands right in the path of a new kind of rationalized violence.
The rise of 20th century fascism.
Exactly.
The physical journey of this wood takes a wild turn here. We jump forward to Granada, Spain in the year 1935. A Romani woodworker named Cristobal manages to get his hands on this piece of incredibly dense, dark wood.
The same wood from the tree and the drum.
The very same. And he carves it into the soundboard of a flamenco guitar for his nephew, a young man named Mateo.
Mateo is such a compelling character.
He really is. Mateo has unusually small hands for a guitarist, but he plays with such absolute feverish obsession that his fingers literally bleed over the strings. And the authors slow down to give us this visceral image of the wood drinking his blood, just like the wooden bowl drank the blood of the covenant at Bocaimon.
It's a deeply symbolic moment. The blood serves as a kind of contract. It wakes the wood up from its dormancy.
It reactivates it.
Yes, it physically and spiritually connects Mateo, who is a Romani kid in Spain, to Birane on the slave ship, and to Maurice and Ézéchiel in Haiti. Even though they're separated by oceans, by centuries, and by completely different languages, they are totally united by the continuation pattern.
And Mateo desperately needs that connection because the Spanish Civil War breaks out in 1936.
Things get very dangerous very quickly.
Yeah. We find Mateo in his home, which is a cave in the Sacromonte neighborhood of Granada, Cave 47. He's playing his guitar for a secret gathering of about 50 people.
And it's a very specific group of people, right?
It is. It's a mix of intellectuals, anarchists, Jewish people, and Romani folks. Basically, all the people who are being actively hunted and erased by the nationalist fascist forces.
The targets of the new rationalized violence.
Exactly. So suddenly, a nationalist officer, Captain Ramirez, raids the cave to arrest them. Here's where it gets really interesting. Ramirez points his standard-issue military pistol directly at Mateo's chest and shoots him point blank.
Another gun, another critical moment.
Right, but the bullet does not kill him. The text describes the bullet penetrating exactly half an inch into the guitar's dark wooden soundboard and stopping cold.
It stopped in its tracks.
The wood just catches it. And the sheer impact of the bullet sets the guitar strings vibrating. But it doesn't just buzz. The guitar begins playing the continuation pattern entirely on its own.
Without Mateo even playing it.
Right. It layers the echoing sounds of the African slave ship hold and the thundering drums of the Haitian Revolution, all right there in the Spanish cave. The fascist soldiers are so fundamentally terrified by this unexplainable, overwhelming presence that they just drop their posture, turn around, and flee into the night.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is the ultimate manifestation of Duende.
Duende. Tell me more about that.
Federico Garcia Lorca, the great Spanish poet, who was actually fascinated by nationalist forces at the start of the war, he wrote extensively about Duende. He described it as a dark, irrational, earthbound force in art that requires a visceral awareness of death to manifest.
So it's born out of life or death struggle.
Exactly. It's not about technique. It's about that raw struggle. In the novel, the fascist forces represent an obsession with total control over the human body, enforcing rigid hierarchies and systematically erasing marginalized histories.
They want everything clean and organized.
Right, a clean, uniform, rationalized state. Yeah. But the manifestation of Duende through the guitar proves that the underlying pattern of human survival is messy, it's ancient, it cannot be arrested, and it most certainly cannot be stopped by a bullet.
Okay, I have to ask a philosophical question about that moment in the cave. When the guitar is vibrating with the sounds of the ancestors and the bullet is lodged in the wood, is Mateo playing the guitar or is the guitar playing Mateo?
The text strongly implies that the boundary between the human and the instrument completely dissolves.
They become one thing.
Yeah, Mateo becomes a vessel for the pattern, in the exact same way that Ézéchiel became a vessel for the lowest spirits in Haiti. The individual ego steps aside so that the collective survival pattern can flow through it.
That makes total sense. I picture the guitar catching that high-velocity bullet almost like a dry sponge, absorbing a single drop of water.
A drop of water.
Yeah, think about it. That specific piece of wood had already absorbed the raging fires of Senegal, the unspeakable, concentrated horrors of the Middle Passage, and all the blood and fire of the Haitian Revolution. After holding all of that historical weight and trauma, a single bullet fired by a fascist captain is just insignificant.
The wood simply refuses to be destroyed by something so small.
Exactly. It's swallowed up.
And what's truly remarkable is how that refusal is contagious. It spreads. Because later in the narrative, Mateo is captured and imprisoned in Malaga.
Oh, this scene is so powerful.
He is lined up against a wall in front of a 12-man firing squad, alongside 39 other cellmates. They are moments away from execution. And in the silence before the order to fire, Mateo starts humming.
The same rhythm.
Yes. He hums the continuation pattern, using the exact same cadence Birane used in the pitch-black hold of the slave ship. Slowly, the other 39 condemned men join in.
Just humming together.
And as the rhythm builds, the 12 nationalist soldiers completely freeze. They refuse to pull their triggers. One of the soldiers actually drops his rifle to the dirt and states, "I cannot shoot men who are singing."
We really need to explore the why of that moment. How does humming a simple rhythm disrupt a heavily indoctrinated fascist soldier's programming?
It's a profound psychological break.
Right, because fascism relies on dehumanization, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You have to view the target as an object, an other, to execute them cleanly. But when those 40 men start humming in unison, they are projecting an undeniable, overwhelming wave of collective humanity.
The rhythm pierces right through the military conditioning.
Yeah, it rehumanizes the target so forcefully that the psychological mechanism allowing the soldier to kill just jams.
It's the complete destruction of the rationalized machinery of death through an alternative epistemology. The soldiers are trained for begging, for crying, for silence.
Things they can ignore.
Exactly. They have no protocol for an invisible cathedral of memory rising up in front of a concrete wall.
Wow. So, bringing this all together, we've traveled from a burning kapok tree in 1758 to a firing squad in 1937. So what does this all mean?
Why does it matter today?
Yeah. Why should you, listening to this right now in the present day, care about a fictionalized history of wood and rhythm? Well, because this book fundamentally redefines what it actually means to survive.
It really shifts the perspective on legacy.
It does. The text argues that physical death is not the ultimate enemy of a people. Erasure is the real enemy. Being forgotten is the enemy.
That's a crucial distinction.
We survive the unsurvivable not by fighting it solely with brute physical force, but by becoming part of a continuation pattern that is infinitely larger than our individual selves. When oppressive systems try to strip your language, burn your monuments, and erase your name, you encode your humanity into a rhythm of frequency that they can't see, they can't understand, and they can't arrest.
It is a profound, beautifully constructed thesis on human resilience. And the authors don't leave the concept buried in the past.
They bring it right up to the present.
Yes. I want to leave you with a final thought drawn straight from the source text's epilogue. Because the story of the rhythm doesn't end in the 1930s with Mateo. The text actually flashes forward to modern-day Dakar, Senegal, in the year 2024.
That's where it started.
Exactly. A young electronic music producer is digging through digital audio archives and stumbles upon a distorted, crackling 1930s field recording of that exact same Wolof drumming rhythm.
Wow.
She cleans it up, samples it, builds a heavy electronic track around it, and releases it online. It goes globally viral. Millions of people around the world are dancing to the continuation pattern in clubs and on their phones without having any intellectual idea of what it is. But their bodies know. Their blood recognizes the frequency of survival.
It really forces you to look at your own surroundings differently. Like look around you right now. Look at the space you are in.
You never know what's hidden in plain sight.
Right. What if the everyday, seemingly mundane objects in your life, like an antique desk, a family heirloom passed down, or even the wooden floorboards beneath your feet, are silently holding the memories, the traumas, and the survival patterns of past generations?
It gives everything a heartbeat.
It really does. They might just be sitting there, quietly waiting for you to strike the exact right rhythm to wake them up. When the paper is gone and the pens are lost and the monuments are burning, you tap your fingers on the wood, you play the pattern, and you continue.